Well, welcome to another episode of the In Search SEO podcast, where we dispense more SEO insights than a personal injury lawyer hands out frivolous lawsuits. Today we'll hear from content and SEO expert Carolyn Lyden as we get into content strategy, thinking about brand identity when setting up content pillars, how to best target users with your content while keeping a dash of inner creativity alive. Learn a great way to create harmony between your content and SEO teams. We'll also get into the most recent Google update and some of the new SERP feature data trends. I am your host, Morty Oberstein, and I am joined by the ferociously ferocious, the grandly grandiose Kim Ragones.
Thank you, Morty. It's always good to be here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little bit under the weather. Well, not really. I'm not really under the weather. I'm contagious.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm not in the office today. That's why I'm not in the Rank Ranger recording studio, the padded carpeted walls. Because I'm contagious. Yes. Not my personality. I'm actually contagious.
Oh, okay.
That's what happens when you have 4 kids.
We appreciate you staying away.
Thank you. In general or just today?
Today.
Put you on the spot like that. Okay. Okay, do not forget, we release a new episode of the In Search SEO podcast each and every Tuesday. You can find it on the Rank Ranger blog. You can find it on SoundCloud. And do not forget, and we would be very appreciative if you subscribed on iTunes. So while I'm really excited to get into our interview with Carolyn Lyden today, who, by the way, is the moderator for SEO Chat on Twitter, I need to talk to y'all about some of the most recent Google update data and image boxes on the SERP as we are going data once again. So it's my worst nightmare.
That is your worst nightmare? What the worst thing that could possibly happen to you that you're afraid of? You don't have any problems in your life? That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, Google updates are my biggest problem, I know. No, actually, okay. It's my worst nightmare, my SEO life. My actual worst nightmare is my childhood. That's a little bit of a downer. Anyway, back to my SEO life. My worst nightmare is Barry Schwartz asking me on Twitter, hey, I saw the last Google update and what's going on with it? And I'm like, nothing, because I didn't look into it yet, because I hate looking into Google updates. Okay, I hate rummaging through the data. It's very hard to find a pattern most of the times, and so of course I'm like, oh crap, I gotta dig into this quickly because it's Twitter and I can't really reply tomorrow, and that was a lot of fun.
So what did you find?
So let's jump back for a minute first. Okay, the most recent Google update per our Rank Risk Index began on February 26th and ended on March 2nd, okay? So there are 2 big spikes. One was on the 27th and another on March 2nd. Okay, so what we did see pretty conclusively that the second spike in the series, the second large spike in the series of fluctuations, of rank fluctuations that occurred on March 2nd was not a reversal. In other words, per our data, when Google hit y'all sites on the 27th, it didn't come back from the dead on the 2nd. Okay, if your rankings crash, they crash. If y'all got a boost, you got a boost. That's not to say there were not some reversals. There were a few sites that displayed such a tendency. For example, I'm not saying Amazon overall. I didn't look at Amazon overall, but Amazon for a group of keywords that I tracked showed a downturn in the beginning of the rollout of the update, and then it saw a spike back up. Yes, okay, there were some reversals. I'm not saying no if you're always going to find that. That's just how it goes, okay? But for the most part, that was not what we found. I wouldn't call a reversal when 80% of the sites that we looked at didn't show any of that tendency at all. For example, there's a group of keywords that I tracked for the travel niche or TripAdvisor, things like that, and their visibility score was, okay, I'll give you the example from TripAdvisor. And this is not for a large set of keywords, it's for a couple hundred keywords. So TripAdvisor's visibility score on the 27th of February was 2,085 for this very limited set of keywords that I tracked. Okay, that went down to 1,549 on March 2nd, so it got hit by the update. On March 4th, the visibility score is back up to 1,603, so it's up 50 points. Okay, that's a slight pickup, but that's not a reversal. Okay, so there's that. Okay, the reversal, if there was any, overall was marginal at best. That's what we saw, and that's that. Okay, now then there's this. Kim, tell us what we've won with image boxes.
Yes, since February 18th, image boxes have undergone a 20% loss on the SERP. This pattern was seen on both desktop and mobile in multiple markets around the world.
Yippers, by the way, that 20% loss is on desktop in the US. Each market saw its own unique loss, but again, the trend was the same. So I dug into this a little bit, and I found a ton of local keywords that lost the image box with a tendency for some product keywords as well. So think keywords like hotel in Los Angeles, California, hotel in Monarch Beach, hotel jobs Durham, hotel jobs Raleigh, North Carolina, hotel Kentucky Derby, hotel Los Angeles, hotels near LAX with free shuttle service, hotels near Los Angeles Convention Center, hotels near Oakland, hotels near Rodeo Drive, hotels near T-Mobile Arena, hotels near Universal Studios, Florida. That was exhausting. Okay, but those are real keywords that I saw that lost the image box, by the way.
These searches all have the word hotel in them.
Yeah, because there was literally thousands of keywords. And I just took a chunk from alphabetically. So hotels.
Okay.
They weren't all hotels. I wasn't gonna read you like thousands upon thousands of keywords. That's crazy. Unless you want me to, I could.
No, that's plenty. Thank you.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
The offer stands anytime you want. I'll read all of them, literally.
I'll keep it in mind.
After the show, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. You have nothing better to do today. Okay. So data is done. Interview with the great Carolyn Lyden now. You're going to love this one. She was great. Some great ideas. I had to cut through it all and get your overall content strategy on the move. So cut one. It is time for yet another expert to join the In Search SEO podcast. Today we have a finalist for the Search Marketer of the Year Award for 2018. She is listed as one of the top SEO experts you should follow in 2019 according to Search Engine Journal. She is Carolyn Lyden. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited that you are here. So I don't really always have the joy of having a real content person on the show. So can I ask? That's right, fist bump. Can I ask you? What is your favorite thing to write about, and or what is the weirdest thing you ever had to write about?
Oh, okay. So my favorite things, I really like writing about things that are going on in like the marketing industry. I like writing about content. It's kind of meta. Like I like writing about marketing, but I also like writing about like tech, what's going on in software. I worked at a couple of software companies, so that sort of like even just the process is interesting to me. And then how businesses run, those are things I really not prefer, but I just find joy in researching and writing content about. The weirdest thing I've probably written about, so one of my first jobs in content, I worked for a small agency that would write, we had a lot of plastic surgeon clients, so I would have to watch the surgery and then describe it so that it didn't sound like it was like a terrifying thing. And I am like the most squeamish person when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'd like watch a rhinoplasty and they were like hammering a chisel into someone's nose, and I had to be like, oh, like slight, like barely, like make it sound like it didn't like be excruciating and you didn't have like giant bruises all over your face afterwards.
That sounds like almost horrific.
Gentle numbing and things like that.
Oh my God.
It was gross.
That sounds terrible. I can never handle that. I'm horrible. I'll admit this on air. I pass out at the doctor when they take blood. I can't handle it for some reason.
I have to look away and I like sweat all over the chair when I do it. Oh, well.
So the worst part is my wife is a nurse and she constantly makes fun of me about this. Yeah. Oh man, I get no rest for that one. Okay, so since we're talking about content, let's talk about more content and content pillars and all that good stuff. So for the audience out there who may not be familiar with what a content pillar is, would you just mind explaining what is a content pillar?
Yeah, so my interpretation of content pillars is essentially you create an overarching like theme for your business. You obviously have a certain target audience and there are certain things that they're interested in that relate to your business. So to me, the pillar is essentially creating the stacks of content that all relate back up to a top level, topic. Or I feel like in SEO, we're always like talking about keywords and then, like there's weird battles. Is it a keyword? Is it a topic? Is it a key phrase? But I think it's like the general idea of what's an overarching umbrella that all these other pieces of content can fall under so that we can relate them to one another and then relate them back to this overarching topic content idea.
Oh, okay. So is that integrally tied to brand identity or does it not have to be? Do you think?
I think in my opinion, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later too, like I think it should be sort of tied to your brand identity. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, but I want to create pieces of content that aren't like, they're like tangentially related to what I'm actually doing. And I really think that has to do with creating pieces of content for the different stages of the funnel. Like you can fit it under the pillar. It'll just be a top of funnel piece of content where, you know, like if you're searching for shoes and you're a shoe company, someone's searching for shoes and you want to show up, you're going to have to write the like best running shoes for women this year or something like that, which you're like, well, you know, that may not be what we're all about, but that's the top funnel piece that's going to draw in the people who will then eventually convert into customers.
Right. So, okay, let me take a step back then, because I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. Where do you start off with creating a pillar? And I have a problem. There's when I have a vision of where I want to go, where I want my content to be, and I sort of have a very lofty plan for it. But at the same time, it's not user focused at all. It's just completely my own, right? My own. It's according to my own preferences, my own way of thinking about things. But at the same time, there are moments where I say, okay, the content has to be user focused. What problems are my users faced with, and how do I create content that aligns to those user problems? How do you sort of balance that? How do you sort of balance focusing on the user, but at the same time catering to how you see things and your, you know, that internal vision that really motivates you?
Yeah, I think one way to do that is to assign your pillars to individual like target audiences. So you could say like this quarter, we're really focusing on growing our business in this particular product area. Who are the target audiences that have problems that our product or service could potentially solve those problems? And then just go ahead and make the pillars for that specific need into those audience members. So maybe it's startups, maybe you're targeting agencies, maybe you're targeting small businesses. Go ahead and make the pillars those target audiences, and then you can create the pieces of content that you think would serve them best, but also have your perspective on your business or service related to those individual audiences' pain points.
Right. So I mean, you mean to say that the greater theme should align to, or the greater themes rather should align to each user's problem. Then you can take it from there and fill in how you want to go about it at that point. If I understand you right. Okay.
Sure. I think that's like a good general.
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, because I think oftentimes, like as marketers will like, I don't know, I have a problem where I like dig in, I see a bunch of research, and I write it, and I'm like, man, this is the article I'd want to read. And then when you step out of your own bubble, you're like, oh man, that like nobody else cares about it in this, like from this point of view or from this perspective. So oftentimes it's like recrafting your own, you know, the piece you've created for yourself to how it works for the people you're actually trying to sell to.
Yeah, I know that feeling too well, unfortunately. I was just doing a conference recently for technical writers, and we're talking about how to leverage SERP features, why you need to, you know, consider the SERP features. I'm talking to somebody before the presentation, and I'm thinking in my head, oh man, like my perspective on this and his perspective on this, and he's the technical writer, are two totally different things. Like in the next 10 minutes, I better figure out a way to sort of bridge that gap real quick. It's like our worst nightmare.
That makes me feel like sweaty for you and nervous.
It's like that's when being quick on my feet and being a first class schmoozer comes well into perspective. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I always love being around those people. I feel like if you have a good schmoozer friend, like you can do anything in life because you can just tag along with the schmoozer. See,
I used to not be. I used to be a terrible schmoozer. And it's like only later in life. I don't know what. I think it's maybe having kids and having to sell things that I don't really believe into them. So that's made me a much better schmoozer. Like, you know, you need to definitely go to bed now. I would go to bed now if it were me.
Brushing my teeth is fun.
Right. That was literally the fight this morning on the way out the door to school. Okay, so talking about personal experience, when I used to teach, there was this idea of backwards planning, which I always hated. But anyway, it was a big thing. So you start off with the assessment, the test, and what questions you want the students to be able to answer by the time you're done teaching them. And you basically create content, you create lesson plans that hit on those questions. Okay, so this of course is basically a great idea. It sounds like a great idea when creating a content pillar. You start off with what do you want the audience to know, what do you want your users to know, what problems are they facing, and what do you want them to walk away with in terms of solutions. Except that I found when I was actually doing this, when I was teaching, creating teaching units, that it completely stifled creativity at certain points, and it lends itself to a certain amount of inflexibility. So obviously having that goal in mind is a big deal, and it's important. You have to do that. But at the same time, to what extent should you backwards plan when creating a content pillar? In other words, how effective is it to first think about what channels you want to hit and with what sort of content? And what are the pitfalls you have to be careful when doing that?
Yeah, so in my previous job, the SEO department was separate from the content department. So this actually came up very frequently because the SEO team would be like, this is what you need to do. You need to hit these bullet points. Everything needs you need keywords in your titles. You need to do this. You need to do that. And the content team was like, but we want freedom. Like, we need to be creative. And, you're stifling us, that sort of thing. So we had to sort of meet in the middle and figure out the best ways that, the SEO boxes were checked, but the content team felt that they had the freedom that we weren't prescribing everything that they should write. And in that case, they would have been like, well, then you just write it because
right.
we don't want to write this from your point of view. So one way that we sort of figured out a good middle ground was we came up with this content matrix, which I sort of referenced earlier, which is where we have this, so every quarter we'd have an overarching theme essentially. So our theme this quarter is we're really targeting these specific groups, and for each of those groups, we come up with a set of pain points. What are let's go talk to these people, what are their actual pain points? So this is sort of the backup, like you were saying, or planning things out in advance so that we can know what actually resonates with people and sort of have this is the end goal, is we're going to solve these pain points for you, or show how our product or service solves these pain points for you. So with that in mind, we would sort of create a pillar for each individual target audience, like I mentioned before, and then just line out the pain points essentially in rows. So the pillars in a spreadsheet would be the columns. The rows across would be maybe 4 pain points for a specific audience in that, or a specific target audience. And so we'd say maybe for, if we're targeting agencies, what are their actual pain points? We think their pain points are this, but we go and talk to them, and it's really that they want to increase retainers, and they deal with client turnover, and communication is a big thing. So how can we, at the top of the funnel, address those pain points? Yeah, man, that really sucks. How can we, in general, address your pain point and say, this is the top of funnel way that we would address that? And so we would just be here's the pain point, content team. You know what SEO is looking for. And here are the questions that people ask around it. So actual user feedback. Here are what people go online to search when they search for this specific topic at the top of funnel. And you figure out how you answer that. However, fits your creative boat, whether it's a, clickbaity BuzzFeed thing, 5 ways to increase your client retainer for agencies, or it's just a how to do this with step-by-step sort of thing. What do you think works best with your creative content perspective? So it's giving people the tools and then letting them build whatever they need to build with that information.
That sounds amazingly comprehensive. Have you noticed it before you adopted this versus after you adopted this? Can you tell me what the impact looks like?
Yeah, so before, like I said, there was a lot of contention, I think, between content and SEO, because SEO is we need these strict things, and here are the questions you should be answering. And content was well, you're stifling our creativity, and we've done kind of research, and we know how to talk to people. We were hired in this job to write specifically for these people. So I think afterwards, there was actually a lot of buy-in on our team. So people were very involved in creating the matrix. We'd have a big meeting for, it was we'd bring lunch in and everybody would eat, and we would talk about things that, we had just seen, oh, I saw someone wrote about this on LinkedIn. Maybe that would be something that we could address for this individual audience in the middle of the funnel, because that seems like a pain point that that audience has. So people can bring in their own experiences and sort of be involved creatively in the ideation process. And then from there, they feel very inspired to continue and create the content and then also promote it once it's published, because they're I had this idea, and this is answering that specific person's question on LinkedIn or whatever else.
So you've basically created buy-in from both sides at the same time, which is amazing.
It wasn't just me creating it. I mean, it was the whole team working together and everybody sort of coming together to problem solve, that sort of thing. But yeah, it got buy-in in both sides. And I think it also helped everyone see the other's perspective. Whereas, a lot of times SEO has certain traffic goals and conversion goals. And it's sometimes harder to measure content. Yay, we have brand awareness. What does that mean? Is that branded searches? I don't know for sure. So I think it helps tie people in to also see hey, this is the end goal I'm trying to reach, and I don't have full control over what's going out. So how can we work together so that both of us can meet these goals? And then also, as a part of that process, the content team was we want number goals too. how can we have goals to prove that we're, driving conversions and bringing value to the company? So that's like, of course, the match made in heaven version.
If there was some sort of Nobel Prize for the Nobel Peace Prize in the SEO industry or the content industry, I think you guys would get it.
Yay! Thank you.
Because
I'll prepare my speech.
I hope our own teams are listening to this. Wink, wink. No, I'm joking. Let me ask you. Okay, so it used to be the consensus that creating a content pillar or a pillar page rather was sort of SEO manna from heaven. So do you think that still holds true considering how saturated the content market is and how competitive the content market is and how predisposed Google is to use its own SERP features, thereby limiting traffic to a page?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know that it's necessarily manna from heaven. I'm not going to like float my own boat and be like, this is the best thing I've ever thought of and everyone doubted me. But I really
That's
think,
fun because every article that says top 5 ways to build a content pillar says this is the most important thing you could ever do. I'm so confused.
which I think, actually, I don't know if we can mention it here, but I think HubSpot like created this concept of like pillar pieces of content when they said they quote unquote like created inbound marketing sort of thing. And I think because inbound marketing is, the thing, like now consumers have more control over what sort of marketing we engage in. And, like we can fast forward through commercials now and we don't have to, we like recycle the direct mail that comes to our house and spam email, we just unsubscribe sort of thing. So like as consumers, we have more control over the marketing messages that are presented to us. So I think because inbound marketing, where we're actually trying to solve users' problems and serve their needs, and it's more about them than it is about us, means that like this concept of content pillars has also become like up on a pedestal. And like you were saying, like manna from heaven, it's the only way to do things. But I think it kind of depends on your business, and sometimes you have to do what works best for your business. And sometimes that's not like a content pillar, to be honest. You asked me earlier, like what was the weirdest industry I worked in. So I worked in plastic surgery, but I also worked in funeral homes.
Oh, I see that goes hand in hand. If things go
wood.
poorly, right?
But like funeral homes, you can create content for them. When I worked there, we created content around events and like support groups and how to like move on and, like while remembering your loved one. But there's only a certain amount of content you can create. And oftentimes what drives the most business and conversions for them isn't necessarily the content. The content just helps like create the community and, brand awareness sort of thing.
Right. Very understated brand awareness.
Yeah. But for certain people, like small local businesses like funeral homes, what works best for them was like local SEO tactics and advertising in the local pack and that sort of thing, and things like that you wouldn't expect, like social media, like building online communities and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's necessarily like, I'm not shooting or like, shooting my own horn or think that what I do is the best thing that's ever happened to the marketing universe. I think content is important in marketing just because of the inbound marketing perspective of things, but it's not the end all be all. And some businesses, especially I think sometimes small local businesses can forego it, especially if their time is limited, for more important things that will affect them greatly.
That sounds heretical almost.
Yeah.
No, that actually is a really interesting point to think about. That you always think about content and the various levels of content, the various parts in the funnel that you're trying to target with your content, but in reality, content could just be one part of the overall funnel itself, intrinsically.
Yeah, and there's another podcast. I think it was Coffee Blogger. They had a guest on whose name I forgot. I'll find it and maybe we can put it.
You said we'll link to it.
Okay.
There we go.
Where the guy was essentially saying, like, if you like expand your mind, in essence, everything out there on the internet and even not on the internet that is about your business is in fact actually content, quote unquote. Like reviews, user-generated content, or reviews are user-generated content. You don't necessarily have control over it, but it's content about your business. So I think if we sort of like, expand or zoom out a little bit, we can see that everything is content and content is everything. But there are some things that don't necessarily work for certain businesses, and, like a pillar may be one of those things, but they can, quote unquote, have content in other places that serve them better.
That's a really, really, really great way to think about that. A really balanced way to think about that, actually. That's refreshing to hear, actually.
I mean, I'm not deluded to think that, like, I can solve everyone's problems immediately with content.
5 easy steps, 10 ways to solve all the problems of your content marketing in one article.
Content,
That's right.
content.
Content is king. I don't know why it's not queen. It should be both. Anyway, I hate to do this to you, but I have to do this to you because I do this to every guest. I have this bit I call it optimize or disavow, and it's basically I'm going to give you either two really good options or two terrible options, and you have to choose one of them. So in one case, you're choosing one really good option, discarding the other really good option, and in the other case, you have to choose one really crappy option, and you have to put your name on that. Which we won't hold it to you, of course, because we know it's a game.
Yeah.
But are you willing to play optimize it or disavow it with us?
Yeah, for sure. I'm
All
ready.
right. So this is the Carolyn Lyden version of optimize it or disavow it. So sound and robust content pillars or energetic link building. If you can only do one, you have to choose one. Would you create a comprehensive content pillar at the sacrifice of really focusing on link building, or would you create your standard sort of mediocre run-of-the-mill content, but give link building your full and focused attention?
So this was actually super easy for me because
Everyone always says that, by the way. Yeah, this is like super. I'm sitting here like sweating. I had to figure out this bit and figure out a great question to corner somebody, and it never works. I don't know why I try. Go ahead.
so the reason this was super easy for me is because I feel like a lot of times, or at least a lot of content people I know, a lot of SEO people I know were like very introverted. So we'd rather like not actually have to engage in things like link building. I actually host SEO chat on Twitter, and every time we talk about link building, everyone's like, just create great content. Like, you just create great content. And everyone's like, you won't have to actually call and talk to people. Like, that's the thing. People don't want to like email people, or I think a lot of people feel like link building is like begging to have your links included. Like, oh, please say I'm worthy. But I'm sort of in that camp too. Like, I hate asking for a link. And I do think, like, it's always like theory versus practice. But in theory, if you're creating excellent content, it'll show up in search engines, it'll serve users' needs, and people will link to it. I understand, though, that it does require like promo sometimes, and you got to sometimes, be the person who begs for a link. But if I had to disavow link building in this scenario, I would 100% go for creating awesome content and hoping that the world recognizes it for what it is.
This is why I like having content people on and not SEO people sometimes. I'm totally with you. I am not a big fan of trying to ask for links.
Yeah.
I find it so awkward.
It is super awkward. And then, I think there was a big controversy on SEO Twitter a while back about this news organization being like, we don't link out to anyone. And
just mentions.
Yeah, like people were so miffed about that. And I was like, if they linked out to every single person who probably asked for it, then it would just be like, a bunch of linking to people they probably also don't necessarily believe in their product or service. They're just like writing a news story about. So I'm cool with that. I feel the same way. Like, if someone asks me for a link, and especially when it's weird, and they're like, I see you're mentioning like lawn care, and I wrote this thing about hair care. Put me in your section of your site. And I'm like,
right.
Get away from me. Like, go away, you. So maybe I just hope that no one responds to me the way I respond to other people.
So like that's the thing, like because people always ask me, when I do ask somebody, which of course never happens, there's always that like anxiety in my mind, or that self-conscious, like, do I sound like that person?
Yeah.
Because I would really not like myself if I do.
Yeah, I agree.
So you sit there slaving over the email, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, how does this sentence sound? How does this? I'm going to change, and what should take 5 minutes is like a 3-hour event.
Right. And you're like editing your email to them, and then you just don't send it. You're like, is it worth it? I don't think so.
Pretty much. And then someone asks, did you ever ask for that link? I'm like, right. So let me get back to that.
Just casually.
By the way, thank you for reminding me about the SEO chat. I totally forgot to plug that. I'm really sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. I like to mention it like casually. That's my link building for my
nice.
SEO
That was good.
and for my Twitter chat.
I will make sure to put a link, and you don't have to ask. I'll just do it.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other links you want to send me? You don't have to. You're gonna send me the links. You don't have to even write hi. I'll just put them in.
Cool.
So
Will do.
yeah, no worries. Okay.
Thanks.
So thank you very much, Carolyn, for coming on. I really appreciate this. Is a great conversation. I love talking content. Really insightful, and I do really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It was exciting. I can talk content all day, as you can tell.
So we'll have to have you on again to talk more content.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
And we are back to your regularly scheduled In Search SEO podcast. She was super nice, by the way. I really enjoyed interviewing her. Actually, by the way, I did check out SEO chat on Twitter, the last Thursday's session, which I'm not a big Twitter chat guy. And in this particular instance, it's really bad timing for me because it's when my kids are most active. But I did check it out. And it was great, and it was a lot of fun, and I think I'm gonna do the whole Twitter chat thing again, I think. I'm gonna try, at least. But definitely check out SEO chat. It was a lot of fun. And if your kids are screaming, just do what I did. Said, okay, I'm out. My kids are screaming. I literally wrote something like that. Anyway, it's always fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's next?
The poll question.
The poll question. Okay, so with what we just heard from Carolyn,
how important is mapping out your content?
Okay, so be honest, okay? I'll be honest, okay? I'm always honest, but I'll be honest. I don't always map out my content. You heard it here first. It's horrifically as that sounds. Sometimes I have a general approach and I go with it, and times I feel like I need to be a little more fluid. And there are times where I get into highly specified mapping processes, and I'm okay with that ebb and flow, okay? So again, how important is mapping out your content to you? Be honest. From this week to last week, let's see the results from last week's poll question where we asked, how important do you think influencer marketing is? And a whopping 73% of you thought it was either important or really important. Some interesting thoughts on this one. Marilyn Moran at Philly Marketing on Twitter. That's at Philly Marketing on Twitter. Said, and this was in response to influencer marketing not being huge within the SEO community, and considering that there's a ton of link building potential with influencer marketing, you would expect it to be huge within the SEO community. She said, I think most people want the instant gratification that influencer marketing brings, not the bigger picture of how a relationship can be built, the long haul, if you will, and that's very true. Okay, I am guilty of this as well. You associate influencer marketing with that big, that big share. 100,000 people now see this. Great. As opposed to if I have a relationship with an influencer and I get my links within their content, I can create a more robust link profile. That's a long haul process that's not so attractive. Okay. Also, Svi Zucker. That's at TZVIZUCKER on Twitter said that while he views influencer marketing as a very important item, his company doesn't partake in it because, quote, it's not a good brand fit, which is an interesting point that gets overlooked. For example, if you are a sort of behind-the-scenes business, it's probably not a good fit. Influencer marketing is probably not a good fit for you. You're probably not a good candidate for it. So yeah, it definitely depends on the type of business that you have. So thank you both to Marilyn and Svi for participating in the poll question. All right, should we do the news?
Yes. That's the only reason I got up this morning.
Really? That's sad. Wow. I mean, before you said I'm living in paradise because the only thing that's bothering me is doing algorithm update information, but your life sounds sad. The only reason you got up this morning for the news?
Yes. It's
wow.
what I live.
And it's scripted, so you know what you're going to say even.
Yes.
Wow. Everyone send some pity over to Kim's way. Okay, then. Take it away then, Kim, with the news.
Google has added a carousel of popular products that appears within the organic result, fittingly calling it a popular products carousel.
So I'm going to say my comments for the next story you have on your list, so go right ahead.
Sure. New really innovative additions to image search. For starters, Google is adding sponsored images that look like a regular image, where when you hover over it, you can see how much some of the items within the image cost. Also, Showcase Shopping's ads will be coming to image search. This ad format will be a carousel of images with a brand display that appears at the top of the image SERP.
Okay, so now I'll comment. Common theme. A far more subtle way to advertise. I think that Google's now has not only realized the power of images, right? But that image ads are perfect. They're the perfect way to present subtle sponsorships. Okay, that works as a carousel on the SERP. It can work as images with price overlays. but it's seamless. It's not, you don't really know it as an ad. It just looks like it's organically placed. It's just part of the whole shebang. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Last is Google is letting businesses put a carousel of offers into their business profile. This means the local panel will show a carousel of offers on the SERP for branded queries.
Okay, so need I say more? Another seamless way to add product to the SERP. Okay, so while this is not a sponsored format, it definitely turns the SERP into a more seamlessly dynamic place for products, meaning it's a better way to compete with Amazon on their own properties, within their own properties, on their own SERP. Okay, from products to products, let's stick with products, but this time let's get fun with it.
Fun it is.
I'm not sure that's sarcastic or not, but it is time for your fun SEO send-off question. Okay, so for today since we're talking about products, lots of products in ads and image ads and carousels on the SERP, which kitchen appliance is Google? Which kitchen appliance is Google?
Okay, very creative as usual.
Again, sarcastic.
No, really.
Okay, thank you.
I need a minute to think about this one, and I have a suggestion for a send-off question myself. Should I say it now or later after our answers?
Ooh, you choose.
Later.
Later. Okay. All right, so let me take this one. I think Google is a blender. Because it's so good at blending ads and product placements for a seamless product SERP. Get it? It's blending it in. It's all seamless. That was so corny and bad. Yeah, what do you got?
So the only answer to this question, I think, is a standing mixer with all the accessories. It's like a monster in the kitchen, and it's a tool you can use for whatever you like. And once you start using it, you cannot live without it.
Yes, I cannot live without my standing mixer. What's a standing mixer?
It's one of those KitchenAid ones.
Oh, KitchenAid. Okay, I know that.
And you can plug in all different accessories to make
bread,
ravioli or spaghetti even, or juices.
Really? So I always use it for bread. I know what it is. I know the KitchenAid.
The bread is also good.
Okay.
But there's more.
There's more. You heard it here. There's more than bread. Oh, wait. What's your question?
So what would Google eat for breakfast?
Oh, well, okay. Tune in next week to find out.
Yes.
That will be next week's question. Okay, that will do. Oh, by the way, you're officially taking over the questions now. Once you start doing them, that's it. It's all over.
Maybe that's the only one I can ever think of.
We'll just keep asking the same one every week then. Okay, that will do it for us. This 18th episode of the In Search SEO podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next Tuesday for an all-new episode. Until then, this has been In Search, because we're all in search of something.
Thank you. See you then.